Welcome back to this Live Sunday Talk Show here on the Arise News Channel. With me, I still have Professor Bola Akinterinwa, Professor of International Relations at the Achievers University, Owo, Ondo State. Professor David Aworawo, Professor of International Relations and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos. And Professor Anthony Kila, Professor of Strategy and Development and Institute Director at the Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, CIAPS. Well, it's a day of professors, as it were. But very quickly, quite a number of issues have been raised, from the NBA to the coup in Gabon, and the response from Cameroon and Rwanda, and also Nigeria going to the WTO and the role of the African Union. I mean, international relations issues are completely down your territory. So today is devoted majorly to your concerns. But first, who do I start with? Let me start with you, Professor Akinterinwa.
Well, many are the issues raised. Let's begin with Professor Adele Jinadu. He raised the issue of agreements done by Nigeria. He said if you do go to Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Finance to ask for copies, it will be difficult to really find them. He cannot be more correct. Because when I was Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, we made very strenuous efforts to get them. But by that time, Mrs. Bola Dada succeeded in getting virtually all these agreements. And you can find them at the NIA. He also talked about the need to reconcile economic development with political development. I agree with him again. You see, you cannot create a dichotomy between the two. It wouldn't work. More importantly, he raised the issue of, the rules of special assistance. I only want to simply observe that, look, I wouldn't see any conflict in having essays. The role of the essay does not conflict with the mission, the role of any Minister of Foreign Affairs. The issue is that a special assistant, as distinct from special advisor, all right, they are supposed to see to how to implement whatever is decided at the level of the Minister of Foreign Affairs. You see, a personal assistant is engaged, is seized with the problems of his principal. A special assistant has a special meaning. You know, when I was first of all appointed special advisor, the letter says special advisor. But the moment it was discovered that I'm coming from NI is under the Minister of Foreign Affairs, they changed my designation to special assistant, meaning that my own problem is to advise within the context of how to get foreign policy decision implemented. So my minister, all right, is to ensure what the whole government wants. Then the essay to the minister is supposed to ensure the success of his minister. That's what I want to quickly say that. And then quickly on Ambassador Akisanya's submission. Generally, I agree with some points he raised. Ambassador Akisanya talked about good and bad coups, that for him, there is nothing like any good coup. I do not agree with him. I will agree with the Bolagi Akinyemi school of thought that we can have a good coup. This was even discussed in one of his platforms, either through my eyes or within the framework of the Academy of International Affairs. What makes a coup bad? What makes a coup good? It is bad because it has been outlawed. That's the way it is. But now, people have not been discussing about civilian coups. We are now seeing that a government that is elected can actually come into the open and be working against the interests of the people that the government is supposed to protect, to secure. So, in this particular case of Gabon, it is a good coup as identified by Bola and I agree. Now, we can now give as many reasons as possible as to why it is a good coup. For instance, how will you explain the fact that Ali Bongo has been there for long? The African Union closed its own eyes. They wouldn't see that. We talk about Sitatism, the AU, the ECOWAS, the ECAS, Economic Community of Central African States. They wouldn't do anything. Now, someone will come to power by coup d'etat. Suddenly now, he will amend the constitution, he will contest elections and be elected. He got in through an unconstitutional coup d'etat. He now changed. The Omar Bongo, how did he get to power before?
Ali Bongo.
Ali Bongo is the current one.
The father.
Oh,
The father.
Yeah.
Now, what happened to Cameroon when Amadou Ahidjo was ousted?
Yeah.
By this same
Paul Biya.
Paul Biya? Was it not true coup? Now you change, you become president, and you have not been there since that time. So if people are now complaining about all these things, we can have very good coup, not just good coup. The moment any elected government does not satisfy, does not comply with the rule of law, the mere fact that you are elected does not confer on you any right to abuse the rule of law. So if you are elected and you work against the spirit of the law itself, then in that particular case, you too must be removed forcefully. I want to say in this particular case that, look, Ambassador Akinterinwa, when he was talking about recalling of ambassadors, I like your question, certainly. I agree with him to a very great extent in the sense that, look, if you look at a copy of the letter written by the Minister of Foreign Affairs as reported in the newspapers, sent to the people, I read the one sent to London. It was addressed to the ambassador of Nigeria to United Kingdom. For God's sake,
We don't have
you have just started business as foreign minister. Yeah. You are addressing someone in London as ambassador, when you should be talking.
It's a high commissioner.
Yeah, you should be high commissioner. Okay. Now, if you look at,
let's hear from.
Okay, let me. I will stop at the concluding letter of sent. Is talking about please accept the assurance of my soul something. Look, this concluding something is an expression, standardized, internationally standardized, assurances. Yes. It's always pluralized. Now, how will you be sending that particular letter? That is why, when you are talking about asking, why are you giving the impression that there is crisis? Do not give impression that there is crisis. Shegun Akinterinwa said that one. The way the letter, the opening letter suggests clearly that, look, you are being withdrawn, you are being recalled as a result of an offense that might have been committed. You see, generally, and I stop on that, when a government wants to stop or does not want you, or they want to declare you persona non grata, what do they say? They say you have acted in the spirit incompatible with the status of a diplomat, of a diplomatic agent. That is what the foreign minister has done. And that is why probably people quickly ask, what is wrong? Why have you recalled the High Commissioner to the United Kingdom? And that compelled the foreign minister to now quickly explain generally to say it is not reserved to the UK alone.
Professor Kila, your take on this?
Well, Professor Akinterinwa takes back to students of international relations. We remember the exam called Protocols and Process in European countries, like a call. And one of the questions actually asked is that in this country, how do you address the ambassadors? How do you open a letter? How do you close a letter? I think those who have studied international relationship will be familiar with that process. It's not something you improvise, you know. It's a very clear template. Let me start from domestic issues and start from the NBA president, you know, that made some submission. I personally strongly believe that leaders of our societies, both scholars like Professor Akinterinwa and Professor Aworawo, and those in policies and those in the NBA, we need to develop what I term as proactive policy making rather than reactive. The issue we have about legitimacy here today, we could have solved it if 6 months ago, if 10 months ago, we have decided that to avoid any crisis of legitimacy, we must make sure that election matters are solved within, we must make sure that election matters are solved within a short period of time. That is the kind of thing we needed to have done, which we did not do. That is a proactive way. Now we're talking of remuneration of judges. Everybody wants better remuneration. But I argue that along with remuneration of judges, we should also include a good working system, but we'll also include responsibility to say that if you are a judge or a lawyer and you err, this will be the punishment, because we need to say that there are lawyers wasting the court's time. There are people taking vexatious claims to court. And there are judges that are giving judgment that does not appear just, whether legal or not. Lawyers have a tendency that Christians have. When they talk to you, they keep referencing their own Bible. Just the way and lawyers, when lawyers talk to you, they be referencing the law. But they leave out politics and philosophy. That is what determines the law. Just because something is legal does not make it right. Apartheid was legal, but it was fought. So we need to look at those kind of things as well. In terms of international relations, I think, again, proactive policies. ECOWAS, the Central African Economic Council, the African Union, they need to decide and they need to evolve to become democratic institutions. Students of international relations and history will remember that these organizations were not born as democratic institutions. They were institutions of head of states that are meeting. If they want to become the watchdog and the protectors of democracy, then they need to evolve into that. That will also include not just declaration, but monitoring democracy. So that what Professor Akinterinwa termed as the sit-down tight syndrome, they will be the one monitoring it. There's no kind of democracy that allowed an executive president to stay in power for more than 10 years. It is ridiculous. And I am worried when I hear, senior members of diplomatic corps talk about this African democracy. We should be careful. It's either we want to do democracy or we don't want to do. Democracy is largely alien to us. And the few things that we can introduce to it from our culture tends to be things that corrupt democracy. Our culture is deferential. Our culture is philanthropic. Democracy is about an association of peers, and it's about institution, not philanthropy. The state is not kind to you. The state serves you. Democracy is about justice, not mercy. And that is something, because when we talk about this homegrown thing, I get worried that someday somebody's going to invent some kind of homegrown ideas that will make bad situation worse. So I think we need to think carefully along that line.
Professor Aworawo?
Like Professor Kila, I would like to begin from home. And I would like to focus on some of the other issues that transpired at the NBA gathering in the course of the week. The address by President Tinubu and some others, the business environment, they spoke a whole lot about, making Nigeria work, making Nigeria better, improving the lot of Nigerians and all. I would like to focus on that. They spoke generally. I think we can go into specifics. How do we make Nigeria work? How do we make Nigeria develop? We can do that only by everyone doing his own bit. The government has brought a whole lot of policies. Yes, the government needs to pursue these policies with sincerity of purpose, so that we can create wealth, and the results can also be well managed. Because what we see in the last few weeks is the tendency to, pander to some groups while others are left. And that links what the NBA president said about how lawyers and judges are treated, that they don't earn well, and that what they earn, you can't even attempt to compare it with what happens in other countries. I mean, lecturers do the same thing. I mentioned here yesterday in the program we had that Nigerian lecturers are the worst paid on planet Earth. So these are things that the government needs to pay serious attention to, not just rhetoric. Not just rhetoric. Because, see, look at it, the NBA is, Labour Congress is talking about another protest in a few days. Why are these negotiations dragging, for almost eternity? Let something concrete be done so that people's lot of life can improve. People can contribute their quota to, improving the productivity of the country, and genuine development can take place. That also links the point made, about the delegation going to the G20 meeting. I think that is too large. I think they need to be purposeful. What do we seek to achieve? How do we achieve it? Just like was said by the guest. Not just carrying all sorts of people and they say we are going for G20 meeting. These are things I think the NBA meeting and of course the other comments that have been made. Then coups. Actually, of course, I agree with Ambassador Akinsoya that coups are not good. We have had coups over the years, 70s, 80s, we have coups all over the place, but from 60s. In how many countries did these military leaders do well? If you remove Sankara of Burkina Faso, J.J. Rawlings of Ghana, how many more can you mention? So they are almost simply like the civilians they replace. So it's not
Mohammed in Nigeria came by coup.
Yes.
By the time he was trying to ensure the protection of Nigeria's national interest, he was killed.
Yes.
Professor Akinterinwa,
they are very
Muritara's regime needs to be studied well.
Yeah, very well.
He created a lot of chaos.
Yes.
No.
Let's not even go there.
Let's not go there.
The goodness of a coup
Yes.
is not a function of whether they have done well in power or not. The issue is that
Very good.
the military,
The corrective measure.
the military has the constitutional right to ensure that they protect political sovereignty, territorial integrity, and so on. So when an elected government does not do well, the military must ensure the continuity of the state.
Well,
so from that perspective,
I don't agree with you on that, but let me just...
is a theorist of coup.
Let me just land.
He's a theorist of coup.
These coups can actually be... There could be a silver lining in the cloud in these coups. Both ECOWAS and African Union have been in somnolence regarding civilians, undemocratic civilian governments across Africa. Beginning with Equatorial Guinea, where the man has been there for 43 years, and his son, Theodorin Nguema Mbasogo, is the vice president. He's being prepared for the presidency. What could be more ludicrous? The same thing, of course, the Bongo who was removed.
African democracy that we should be wary of.
That is not democracy.
Because if we do homegrown African democracy, Professor Aworawo, I'm very worried that very soon somebody will put their first wife, after they put the second wife, after they put their third wife.
That is what we must reject.
Those are the kind of risks
that are there to put. Now, what AU and ECOWAS needs to do is to...
Today, the title of my column is Democratic Autocracy a la Gabonese.
Well...
So you see this issue, the goodness we need to agree on.
Let me land. There could be a silver lining in it, and this is the silver lining. What the AU and ECOWAS and other regional bodies have been ignoring, that is, ensuring that there are civilian governments that are not doing well, that are undemocratic, that are kleptocratic, that they are not paying attention to the needs of the people. They now need to focus on them.
Exactly.
From Biya to Kagame to Alassane Ouattara, you can go on and on and on and on. They need to focus on them and ensure that the same focus the same attention they have paid to military leaders
should apply
to civilians. If that is done, there will not be coups moving forward, and there will be development.
We do respect in
France,
there's one video circulating now. he organized a party to celebrate 40 years
In power. Yeah.
And now the Cameroonians decided to go there and destroy
the whole party.
Yeah.
etc. That's the type of leader.
It's in line with just the point we are making.
I'm
Yes.
just buttressing
Very
your point
quickly,
there.
just before we go, something again of public interest. The federal government says Nigeria now has a flood warning system that alerts people 5 days ahead of time. According to the Minister of State for Environment, Ishak Salako, there's been a more robust approach to tackling climate change issues in the country. He added that the government recently set up a climate change council to assist other bodies on related issues. The minister's comments have come in the midst of anxiety over the release of excess water by authorities in Cameroon from Lagdo Dam, which is situated close to the Nigerian border. Now, about 11 states in Nigeria are likely to be affected. Some states have set up committees and all that, but this happens every year. Every year, then we have a flood relief fund. People are given money until the next year. Then you have the flooding again. Why are we like this in this country? Professor Aworawo, let me start with you very briefly.
Yes, it speaks to the point you've made before. We have to be purposeful, we have to be serious-minded. If the Lagdo Dam, they are releasing, water comes from there and they say we need a dam to be able to, take care of our own end. Why have you not paid attention to that? All the money frittered away, all the economic losses. Why don't we just do something more permanent, something more definitive to resolve this issue? Of course, the warning system is good. I mean, it will reduce debt and all that. But something more definitive. If we need a dam, let us build a dam. And other measures that are required for us to be able to mitigate to the barest minimum, the negative impact of all of this.
Well, I think you're right. We just need to adopt a mentality of never again in government. Anytime something bad happens and you address it, you not only relieve those who are distressed by the natural disaster, you put in place policy that they say, never again shall we have to go through it. So that in a way, the state grows, society grows, organizations grows by dealing with new issues. Because once they solve one problem, it ought to be solved forever.
Well, Professor Akinterinwa, we once said never again in this country.
Never again.
Are we not dealing with the same problems again?
You raised this particular question when we were discussing Lagdo Dam. The problem is quite different from that. The problem is discontinuity in political governance. One policy is made, another government doesn't follow it when it comes. An agreement was done between and by Nigeria and Cameroon that whenever the Lagdo Dam will be released, Nigeria will be informed. Last year, we were not told, according to the government of Nigeria. But the Cameroonian authority said they were informed. They didn't act. Now, the beauty this year is that, they are now acting. The agreement requires Nigeria to put in place certain structures in such a way that when there is you now have the water running, you will do it. Nigeria has not complied with that spirit, with that agreement. That's the issue. Until we learn how to respect agreements, we will continue to have this type of problem.
Thank you very much, Professor Akinterinwa, Professor Kila, Professor Aworawo. You've been watching This Is Life, the Sunday talk show, here on Arise News. I'm Ruben Abati from our entire team here in Lagos. It's bye for now, and thank you very much for watching.